Hello and good morning. Thank you for those kind words, and I am humbled and honored to be here today and to be in this pulpit. I grew up in a space where women were not common in the pulpit, so it's a big honor for me to be here today. And I just wanted to thank you for embracing me as a part of y'all's beloved community for these past couple months. I have seen the tangible face of God in each hello and good morning, and I appreciate the ways that you have been teaching me in this season. So I grew up in the evangelical space, and the gospel lesson for today was one of the favorite passages to preach from. I've heard so many sermons that all say the same thing. The younger son sinned, and it was really nice of his dad not to kick him to the curb. I will admit, I am one of these bibliophiles that the church has been talking about over these past couple weeks. I love to read, and over this past Christmas, I took a stop at Half Price Books. If you haven't gone, it's really cool. I highly recommend it. And I picked up a copy of Henry Nouwen's Return of the Prodigal Son. Henry Nouwen is a modern-day theologian that talks a lot about combining the head, the heart, and the body, and a lot of my theological education has come from his works. So with me hearing just about identical interpretations of what the prodigal son parable meant all my life, hearing Nouwen's understanding of this text really changed my understanding, and I wanted to share that with y'all today. So this text is found in the Gospel of Luke. The Gospels are a portion of the Christian Testament that share Jesus' life stories and teachings. The story that was shared in our gospel lesson today is commonly known as the prodigal son parable. And in Luke 15, there are two other parables that all follow a lost and then found structure, with the prodigal son parable being the closing teaching. So home is the main theme of this text. Home can mean so many different things to so many different people. It can be where we sleep at night, a billing address, where family is, etc. But that all boils down to place. Today, I want us to think about home as a feeling where we are fully seen, fully known, fully loved, and we are allowed to experience the depths of the human experience. When we are home, we do not have to hide, we do not have to fear, we do not have to alter ourselves to be accepted. Home is a feeling of being at peace with who you are, and that everyone invited into that space affirms the creation that you were made to be. So much of our view of community and relationship is based in transaction and what side of the self each person can see. Do they see the professional self? Do they see the class clown self, the romantic self, etc.? We hide who we are in these relationships because we have a fear that the transaction that we have made might falter. If one knows all of who we are, what if they dislike me and decide to break this unwritten contract that we have made? So we live in tension of being both the older and the younger son in this text. These two identities seem to be in conflict, but I think that they are more intertwined than we like to think about. So let's focus on the younger son in this text for a moment. So Jewish New Testament scholar Amy Jill Levine stated that it was common in that time to ask for your inheritance early. And a lot of our understanding of this text that sees asking for inheritance early as a sign of disrespect is not supported by the historical context, and I think is worth noting. So in order to understand the context of the younger son's life, we must look to the end of the parable. His father loves him so much. When the son was wrapped up in his own guilt and his own shame, his father said, "You are meant to be here, where you are loved." So if the younger son constantly experienced this home that we are talking about, why would he ever leave? So I can be a very cynical person. I can critique a lot of things, and I critique just about every portion of society. But I would like to hone in on this aspect for a moment. We are so scared of being seen. How many times have conversations gotten deep or secrets are revealed, and our first instinct is to flee? For me, this is a constant. I feel like my life is not worthy of the good things that are in it, or that transactional love is the norm. I think that's what the younger brother was feeling in this text. We can concoct these lies in our heads, ones that say that fleeing is the best option. The younger brother who had this home thought that he could escape by hiding himself. He went and he traveled, and I know that the love that he experienced in his travels was conditional. Love that is dependent on resources, status, gain, etc. And in his wandering, he forgot what home is. There is a quote from this coming-of-age novel that gripped my generation that says, "We accept the love we think we deserve." And when we create these lies that we deserve conditional love, we assume that that's all that's out there. We can see this in the thought process of the younger son. He is broken, scared, full of guilt and shame, and he thinks, I have lost a seat at my father's table. I've squandered away his love, and all I deserve is contract, and that's it. In his fleeing, he got a warped sense of what home is and was preparing to be tried, found guilty, and executed. When we flee from spaces where we are fully accepted, we can forget. And yet, we can learn again. We can melt away these layers of false identities and fully and in love and embrace the person who God created us to be. We are told so often to love our neighbors as ourselves, and we rightfully focus on the first part. But that leaves a hole. I urge you today to love yourself wholly and fully. Therefore, we can walk into spaces where there is home and embrace a love that truly is divine. So let's look to the older son for a moment. I think in biblical stories, we tend to put ourselves in the shoes of the main character or the underdog, and we forget to examine ourselves against other characters in this story. And I think we have a lot more of the older son within us than we like to admit. The older brother stayed in a place of home. He had full access to a father who knew the importance of affirming his children. In his comparison and his bitterness, he forgot to relish in the love that was right there in front of him. He thought that he had to earn his father's love by keeping his head down, continuing to do what is expected of him, and staying loyal. In looking to his younger brother's flee, he thought, finally, I get all of the love that my younger brother had. He forgot that he had love right in front of him, and in the meantime, he was striving for something that was already there. How often do we do that? We look to others and convince ourselves that we got it all together and that we are more deserving of love than others. But love has no expectations and no prerequisites. When we understand love as a transaction, we get a view of God that blesses and condemns based on performance. And if that was the case, half of Jesus' lineage would be condemned, and I know for a fact I would not be standing here in front of you today. With all that being said, stop striving for love. You do not need to work to earn the good things in your life. So, we are called to be outside of this world. What if that looked like sending transactional view of community and relationship to hell? And what if that looked like taking the call to radical inclusivity seriously? We have an understanding of belonging that makes belongingness the final step. First, we have to believe the correct things, have the correct theology, and have the proper confessional statements. Then we have to have behavior that reflects that belief. And then once all of those boxes are checked and each contract is signed, then you are welcomed into the community. And I think that's what the normal preaching of the parable of the prodigal son highlights. The audience is angered that the younger son's behavior didn't come to par and are upset that he still has a place at his father's table. So let us do a holy flip for a second. What if belongingness was our primary step? You belong here. Then, being nestled in a loving environment, then our belief and our behavior begins to change. We no longer fear being found out or being too much because we are already called into a space that wholly loves us. So what about the Father? We are all called to be the Father. His faithfulness to love his community is found in his relationship with his children. Both sons have a misunderstanding on who their father is. They both think that there's a tally system that is marking up how much love each son gets. The older brother thinks that he's in the lead and deserving of all the rewards that his dad can give him. The younger son thinks he forfeited his right to be loved in order to explore. But neither one of these views properly encapsulates the Father. And he does a few things that I would like to point out. First, the younger son's father ran and loved him where he was. The father did not wait for behavior modification, explanation, or excuses. He ran to his broken son and loved him. He loved all of him, the little boy that was scared to leave home and the grown man who was scared to be home. There are words in that embrace that we could never put to paper. Words of welcome home and actions of celebrating that he is back in the warm embrace of unconditional love. The older son thinks he's earned his way to celebration and love. But what the father tells the older son is noteworthy as well. He says, I have been celebrating that you are here with me every day. The father does not condemn his son's thinking. He invites his son to reflect and find ways that love was shown that he may have glossed over. So how can we be the father to both the younger and the older son, not only in our lives, but also within ourselves? I think that is reminding ourselves and others to stop striving. You do not need to work to earn love. You are favored and loved by God, by this church, and by me. You are not expected to change any portion of who God created you to be. Let us learn from the Father. Let us learn to show love and be love. Thank you.